Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying watching these videos. These videos are part of an introduction to the course about the rationale, about how we're going to be teaching, about the things that we're putting in place, the learning resources that we're putting in place for all of you who are doing these courses on an introduction to ethnographic research methods as well as ethnic studies. And this is part of a series where I'm going to be talking about some important study skills, some IT skills. The last one that we've just done has been about reading. Why is reading important? How do we read? Where do we get this stuff from? And today we're going to be introducing the important topic of filing, about how we file the things that we read. And the relevance of this topic will be repeated, will be revisited when we begin to talk about our research methods. How do we manage this thing called data, the stuff that we collect when we do this thing called fieldwork. This is an incredibly important skill for anyone whose job involves information. Okay, so let's talk about filing. Let's talk about filing. Okay, so when I was at university, when I was first at university, there wasn't any internet, and we had a library in the university. And if you did a specific topic, if you were studying a specific subject, you knew the part of the library that had the books that you needed. And you used to walk down the rows and you would begin to recognize the different books in the rows. And there was another part of the library that had the reference books that helped you when you had to have an introduction to a topic. And you knew the part of the library that had the journals that were relevant to your course, that your lecturer asked you to read. And so there's some important similarities between physical libraries and what I would call virtual libraries. And because this is an electronic course, obviously we are using a virtual library. Filing helps us find the books and the articles that we need as easily as we can find the books in libraries. At home, I have about 1,500 books, and they are stored in the hallway, and I've got shelves, and on this shelf I have this topic, and then the shelf below it I've got another topic. On the left-hand side I have books about this topic, on the right-hand side. And so whenever I need a book, I know that I go to that part of the house, and on that shelf, around that area, the books are there. We've got to find a way of organising our material in such a way that I can find it as easily on my computer as I can at the library at the university or at my personal library at home. If we file things well, there are all sorts of ways that we can work out what we have and have not read. And this will be a topic that I will be dealing with soon. I'm going to also be introducing some amazing, and there is no other way to say it, some amazing software that will allow us to not only easily find the name of a file, so an introduction to ethnic studies by Brueggemann. I can put in the word Brueggemann or ethnic studies, but also in a specific, I can look for specific phrases in my virtual library, and I'm going to be introducing you to some important software about how to do that. But let's do some basics. Regardless of the system that you're using, regardless of whether you are using Mac or whether you are using PC, there are file managers. In PC, there is a program called Windows Explorer, and in Mac, there is a program called Finder. In both of these programs, you have the option to see programs as icons or in a detailed view. So let me just go quickly to Finder, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to make that full screen, and you'll see that here I've got a number of views. I can see things as icons, I can see things as list, and I can see things as columns, and I can see previews. Now, PC has another set of options, and the most important thing that I need to say is that if you are wanting to manage data, you need to set your view to details or to columns. So, and in columns you can right click and you can include what columns will be included. The file name, the author, the size, the type of file, and you can select the ones that you do and don't want to use. So get familiar with the default file manager in your computer and learn how to set them properly. There are ways of you knowing, you can say, I want to sort files in this folder by the date it was added to this folder, or the date it was created, or the date it was modified. And so if I have just added a folder, it's a new folder, a new file, sorry. If I added a new file and I want to find where that new one is, I can go to the columns at the top. I right click and I select the option of date added. I click on that, and the latest folder to be added will appear at the top. If I have been reading and marking a PDF and making changes to this, I can select modified date, and the PDF that I've most recently modified will come up. This is just a basic way of making the most of the programs you use to file things. Okay, so let's go to my academic library. I go here and I go academic library. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at this and make some observations. I don't know whether you can see that, and you'll just have to come closer to the screen if you cannot. But you will notice something. You will notice that what I have done when I file things, I name absolutely every article, book chapter, book, reference work that I have got and I want to interact with, I want to read, I want to make notes on. I file this. The file name follows a simplified author date system. I have the author. I use it for all of my publications. I have the author, and then I have the initials, and I have the year, and then I have the book title. If it's a journal article, I will have the title of the article followed by the name of the journal. I do this for all publications, and I sometimes also include an EndNote reference, and I will be introducing you to EndNote in later a lecture, so don't worry about that right at the moment. So for books, that is a system that I use. I have surname, initial, year, and title. And so here is an example. This is a book, and here is an example. Going back, for articles, I have the surname, the initial, the year, the title, the journal, and I have the volume and issue and page numbers after that. Very simple. And if it's a long title, cut half of it. Don't worry about that just too much. But this is the easiest way for us to make sure that we will find our data as easy as possible. And when we talk about research methods and ethnographic research methods, managing the data that we collect when we do field work, we're going to be revisiting the importance of filing properly. I'm also going to emphasize later on in the course about this thing called tags and metadata. So I don't use files. I don't use folders. I don't use any folders. I'll be repeating this point again later. But I don't use any folders because one article could potentially be in more than one file could potentially be in more than one folder. And sometimes I might put one file in more than one folder. And then when I'm reading this article, I may be making changes, but all of a sudden I've got two versions of this file, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to see the annotations and the highlights that I've made in only one file. So I can manage data another way. I can manage data not by putting them in files, but adding tags. And what you do in Mac is you add tags. In Windows, you can add keywords. And I will be talking a bit later on about this very impressive program called Adobe Bridge later on. In fact, I won't show you that now, but this is a program which you can use in both PC and Mac to allow you to manage your data. Do not put things in more than one folder. If you've got books and articles, just put them in one folder. Use tags. Do not use subfolders. Because if you use just one folder, you can immediately find where the most recently added files are, where the most recently modified folders are, and if you are writing about the ones that you have created. Now, I'll be talking about the importance of this in organising primary data later on. So don't forget, we will be revisiting this, and if you need to watch this video again when I deal with how to organise and file interviews, audios, interview transcripts, pictures, videos, field notes, this is the foundation that you need to know first. The last thing is an exercise in stating the obvious. Filing is mundane, time-consuming, but despite the fact that it takes a lot of time and it is not inspiring and interesting, it is incredibly important. If we know immediately where we can find our things, then it will save us an enormous amount of time. It's kind of like this. When you want to eat something, in Thailand at least, you go to the fresh market and you may buy some fish and you might buy some eggs and you buy some vegetables, and the vegetables may be the leafy vegetables, and there may be onions or there may be garlic. And you've got to come home from the market and you've got to wash everything because it's probably got pesticides on it, and you have to, so you wash everything, and you may have to bone the chicken out, and you may have to cut the chicken up, and then you've got to peel the onions, and then you've got to peel the garlic, and you've got to cut up the vegetables. And all of this takes time. A lot more time compared to just getting the wok on the stove, starting up the gas, and then putting things together, sauces and wooden spoons and all the rest. Preparing to cook takes longer than actually cooking. And often when you are studying and when you are doing research, which is the main thing we're going to be talking about, there are a lot of very boring, mundane, time-consuming things that we need to be doing in order for us to get to the fun part of putting it all together. Okay, so that's enough about filing. I hope that has made sense. You can watch it again if it has not. And remember, there are links to important files below. We'll be including those. So thanks for watching and hope to see you again sometime soon. See you later then. Bye-bye.